And, sorry. So we're moving on to our landscape unit. We talked about how still life is a genre. It's this like category of images that people invented for historical reasons, where you put a bunch of stuff on a tabletop and try to draw it, and then we can tweak that, play with that, and be imaginative with it. Sorry, this projector's going to take a minute. But basically, for the next 2 weeks, we are going to probably 3 weeks, we're going to move into a landscape project. And this one's more open-ended, so you can be working in a strict observational mode, or you can be playing more with pattern and abstraction. I'm going to show you a bunch of ideas, hopefully, to get you going. Okay, so hopefully we can dig deeper with these 120 ideas. We're also going to make this more open-ended than any assignment you had in 120. So I'm going to show you a range of approaches to landscape here, and I need you to not take them all as equal, right? You're kind of using your eye to move through art history, old images, new images, and think, ooh, I'm intrigued by this approach. And it's not even like I like this approach, I don't like the others, but I personally want to explore drawing in this vein. So it's interesting to think what landscape is. Again, like still life, it's a genre. It's this category of image making that's about how people relate to space, right? Or space, the space we live in and inhabit. How we relate to nature. So if we all go all the way back 40,000 years ago, people were doing these things. The original drawings show flora and fauna from the environments these first civilizations were living in, and we've kept right at it. Here's some examples from Song Dynasty China and from ancient Rome. So people negotiating nature, negotiating the spaces they live in. In terms of Western art, landscape became a really dominant genre during the Romantic period, and it's interesting to think about how, this is the first period in Western painting where there's a real focus on drawing nature, and it's happening in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. So while civilization is busy kind of inventing modernity and how to, double down on building and the same environmental crises that we're dealing with today, artists are kind of reacting against that and noticing nature as a subject of its own. So this is Turner, and he's often playing with this sense of big, sublime, natural space, but there's often some modern element like the train here that's kind of bursting through. So that man versus nature, man in nature kind of conflict is a big theme in him. Okay, so just a wide selection of images and artists I want to throw at you. Charles Birchfield, really whimsical eye based on observation, but then with a lot of editing. So in terms of degrees of representation, is he adding all the detail and making this thing as illusionistic as possible? No, he's editing a ton and using his media in a really expressive way. Beautiful sense of light, though, after we've just been studying. Like, this is a very simplified drawing in some ways. It gets such a gorgeous sense of like crisp, clear light in upstate New York. It's really beautifully done and shows so much skill. This is Josephine Halverson. She has a great eye, just training us on things that we don't typically look at. So this is a more conventional image, right? We're looking at trees, it's beautiful, it's pastoral. Who pays attention to stuff like this? Not most of us. So turning her eye down, paying attention to kind of detritus, the horizontal plane, the surface we move across versus the one we look out at. That's an interesting move. This is Faith Wilding. She's an eco-feminist artist who's really interested in ideas that kind of connect the idea of female with nature. And in her drawings, she has such an incredible control of value and gradients and detail. And she's kind of zooming in on shapes and kind of finding this connection between natural forms and abstract forms that she can play in. So big shifts here too, just in, we're pulled back. We're looking down, looking out, we're looking down, then we're zooming in, we're getting closer. Already there's so many decisions being made. We have a simpler approach to drawing, right? A lower degree of representation and a higher degree of representation. I don't know, it doesn't matter what I like. Like, you have to draw this thing in class, right? So think about what starts to appeal to you. Henri Matisse, these are images he made toward the very end of his life, where he'd be working on big sheets of paper and his hands were too weak to really paint, so he started working with scissors and just cutting out shapes. So playing with simplified shapes, repeating those shapes, pattern, variation, positive and negative space reversals are so beautiful and joyous and complex in his work. This is a very flat image, right? So in terms of degrees of representation and illusion, he's not interested in kind of creating, a super deep, single perspective space you can move out into. He's intentionally playing with the two-dimensional plane of the paper. Again, choices. What are you interested in? This is Eugene Grasset, who's an Art Nouveau illustrator, decorator, and thinking about breaking up the picture plane. So instead of having this kind of unified field of vision, where you're just looking at one relationship to space, suddenly here we have all these different sections, right? He's breaking up the picture plane into 1, 2, 3, at least 4 different sections, and he's filling those sections with different patterns and forms and ideas. So this is like a kind of multi-layered visual experience versus the single unified field. Van Gogh, such just like incredible art making, that idea of expressionism. So he's always looking at nature, but it's also like his feelings, his body expressed through that perception. Sky Gladbush, again, degrees of representation more simpler than the Van Gogh in some ways, but playing with that tension between 3D and 2D, and really beautiful use of materials. There's a lot of wax and layered pastel in here. If you have taken Chris's painting class, if you have worked in color for him there or in Art 123 and you want to incorporate color, talk to me and we can probably make a deal. Seurat's dot painting. I hate those things. They show them in every single art history class. And I love his drawings so much. So here's me trying to get you to study his drawings and his paintings, like such a loose style and this like scribbly accumulative process where he gets these really mysterious images in terms of the sense of depth and light moving through them. But you can't find a single edge. You're kind of in this mysterious haze of space and in a relationship to nature that way. Botanical drawings, like a kind of pseudoscientific way of approaching your relationship to nature, the plant world, that literally comes from the intersection of drawing and biology. So drawings like this come out of the scientific tradition. This is pre-camera stuff, right? You're a biologist, you want to study nature. How are you going to remember what the hell you found out in the field? You do these really intensive, beautiful drawings, and the observation of the drawing process syncs up with your observation as a scientist. This is Mimi Water. She's an incredible gardener / artist, and her garden that she spends multiple hours in a day directly inspires her paintings. She kind of connects them as part of the same practice. This is very abstract, so I can't put a line around something and say this plant versus this plant, but I can feel myself immersed in kind of organic natural space that she's building up through value shifts and mark making and really beautiful use of color. In terms of media, this is dry pastel and color pastel, just puts up in an extraordinary number of layers. I think about this, this kind of shares something with the Serato, so we think about a grayscale version of it in color. This is Sam Falls. He is playing with collecting plant forms, natural forms, letting things fall on his canvases that he leaves outside in natural environments, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. The weather effects can kind of bleach out different sections and create patterns, or sometimes he'll use spray bottles with different pigments in them and spray on the top. So he's creating these layered patterns using the plants themselves as stencils. So you can think about incorporating stencils as part of your work on this project too. David Hockney, this incredibly smart simplification, mysterious, kind of whimsical. This poetry suddenly gets bigger, this house suddenly gets bigger. So kind of surreal, more illustration, fantasy relationship to nature. Glory 9, again, kind of like Matisse-like, playing with that tension between 3D and 2D spaces. These are so interesting to me. At first they read as so flat, and the more time you spend with them, you realize that through all these overlapping elements, she's building up these landscape spaces. You're moving through what feels like a landscape field. So all these images are up in the module now, and I'd really like you to use part of our work time today to study them and think about which artists interest you and why, and we should know that with the other samples. And try to get a sense of your own interests here. So are you thinking about doing a unified field of space? Are you thinking about breaking up the field of vision more? Do you want to play with pattern and flatness? If so, how would you do that? And try to learn from these artists, the genres they're in. You know, if you want to play with pattern, look up shaker drawings. If you want to play with more of a traditional perspective space, you'd be looking at other reference artists. So I'm hoping the work we produce from this project is as diverse as the examples I'm pulling up here. So again, unlike the Still Life project where we're all working in a really similar vein, I want you to really think about what would interest you to pursue here. This is Benjamin Steyer, who's an artist from Massachusetts. He just had a great show in LA. And I love these kind of, again, breaking up the picture into these kind of frames and windows of unusual shapes and sizes, and filling them with different organic feeling patterns and forms. Oh, this is a different one. This is Michelle Stewart. She's an artist who's part of what's called the Earthworks group in the 70s and 80s. And she kind of ditched the whole idea of representation in general and would go out to different locations in the American Southwest and collect pigments and materials from the landscape she was in, and combine those with different binders and create these books that are basically the soil of the different places she was spending time in. So thinking about using your own pigments could be something to incorporate in these drawings too. Like, you know, what is charcoal? It's burnt trees. Most paint is just made up of ground dirt, ground minerals combined with some kind of binder. So she's applying that in a more literal way and kind of conceptual way. These are these gradient pieces she does that are literally different. It's pigment from different locations, so you're getting a sense of the gradient from the natural variations in the color of the earth. Kim McConnell, kind of looser, raw, rough, again playing with pattern in different ways. All right, so there's a very broad range of work here. I want these projects to feel very diverse from each other. That means you have to think about the style of drawing you want to approach. So what do we need to turn in for this unit? Preparatory sketching. This is familiar, right? I'm making you in this class go from sketching to final drawing, sketching to final drawing. For the sketching, I'd recommend, you explore at least 3 of the following techniques. So you could play with gesture drawing, that's really fast, loose drawing, giving yourself like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute. Negative space drawing, are we all familiar with that? We just focus on negative space areas. Continuous line, non-dominant hand. So if you're just feeling totally stumped, I would start this project by going outside and just playing with some of these, and just get your eye on for looking at these natural elements and seeing what starts to feel good. You could also explore rubbing. Do you know what that is? So if you put a piece of paper down on any surface, like the ground or the surface of a tree or a leaf, and then you go on top of it with a pencil or with graphite dust and a brush, you're going to pick up the impression of whatever surface that paper is touching. So that's an interesting element that you could collage into a final drawing. You could think about a stamp effect, so that might mean like the Sam Falls, where you have a collection of leaves and you spray it with a pigment water solution, or it could mean taking a leaf and dipping it in ink and pressing it, right, so you can get different marks that way. So I'm trying to get you to think more experimentally here in terms of some sketching work. You could also think about patterns. So I just showed a lot of artists who are playing with patterns in some capacity. So how could I do that? You know, find some element, some shape that you want to work with. You probably need to simplify a little bit. You can think about repeating that form, like repeating it and varying it. Maybe you rotate it, maybe you change darkness, maybe you change color, right? So we can talk about how to build patterns. Or maybe collaging. So I've had students in this project like make a bunch of drawings and then start cutting them up in interesting ways and reconfiguring that way. So your sketching work, I asked for like 3 sketches, and then you need to turn in a final drawing. That final drawing should incorporate some section spaces, some multi-panel effects, something that's a little more abstract, so not just one single field of vision. I want you to break up the picture frame in some way. That could just be simply having a border or doing something more experimental with it. I want you to go big, use a full sheet of paper. Try to be around 18 by 24 inches. That means in your final drawing, you're going to want to be working on those drawing boards, probably. In terms of media, I'd recommend anything we did in 120 is totally fair game. And I mentioned if you've done color in Chris's 2 classes, you can talk to me if you want to pursue that. So for class, we're going to move outside soon, and basically I want you to spend a good hour or 2 in class doing a few things. Sketching outside, looking at these artists that I just showed in lecture. That's all published now in the Canvas module, so you can find that on your Canvas. And I also have a very diverse selection of artist books up here that I'd like you to peruse too. And I want you to be able to tell me, I want to do my project in the spirit of X. We're not totally copying these artists, but I want to be able to understand your goals through reference to what you're seeing in one of these other artists. Again, either from lecture or from these books up here. You should also be outside, right? We're doing landscape drawings, so you have to experience some space. So go outside and do some sketching. That might just be wandering around. It might be finding some favorite plant form that you're going to focus on and repeat in a pattern. It might be drawing a space. You know, I think about how much depth you want to include in your drawing. Like, are you doing 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet? Are you just focused on single plant forms? Those are all really different. So think about how much space you want to try to draw. You know, zooming in and out. And yeah, playing with the sketching process. So like more perspectival space, like trying to be really accurate, building those observational skills, that's a great, you know, use of time and approach in this assignment. But no, you can also play with pattern and get more abstract with this one and break up the field of vision. Yeah. That's a lot of info. Questions? What questions do you have? Yeah.
Could we like represent a figure in it if we wanted to?
Talk to me. I could be open to that some. I want the landscape element to be dominant, but you might check out, do you know Trent Doyle Hancock? So amazing at like coming up with these crazy, weird kind of surreal like forest spaces with these mound creatures. He has this whole narrative dimension. They're stuck in these great environments. So let's talk. Yes, having seen your sketchbook, I think you've earned that, PJ. And let me just finish with running through, this is Whitney Bedford, and I'm trying to push in this drawing, like now we've done our practice with hardcore observation. For this project, like I want you to be making really deliberate choices about degrees of representation. And by that I just mean, again, like where's the image really illusionistic, and where is it getting like looser and abstract. So in this image you can see like she's got these kind of tree plant forms, but then there's this almost like defacing, aggressive line work on top of it, and this feeling that everything else got blacked out. This is another image of hers, so that suggestion of landscape space, but then the color and the mark making is just kind of consuming it. In this one here, like, you know, really illusionistic, a high degree of representation, and then intentionally getting very simplified and kind of cruise and move to the foreground of the image. So really interesting choices in her work, right? She's not drawing everything. everything the same. I thought this was a really interesting one where the scale shift is like exactly what we tell you not to do in Article 20. So I tell you you need to overlap, and things in front are big, and things in back are small. So of course you should flip it, and it'll get interesting, right? She has the smaller version of that shape in the front, and the larger behind. So interesting reversal there. This image so interesting when she's playing with cast shadows to make the whole background feel really flat, and really flattening out the front of the image, more illusionistic behind. So again, I'm watching an artist make interesting choices, and that's what I want to push in this project. Other questions? Yes.
Do we necessarily have to draw? Or like, not that you're not drawing, but I mean like...
You might have found the only rule, Mariah.
Yes.
Push me though, push me. It is a drawing class.
I mean, yes. Well, I mean like draw, but then like carve or something.
Draw hard?
No, draw and then like carve something.
I could be into that. Are you like thinking printmaking vein?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk. I mean, come up with an idea, especially if you're playing with something pattern-based. I can see incorporating drawing and like a print kind of stamp effect together.
Yeah, I was going to ask a similar question about sort of mixing watercolor and colored pencil.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah, you've had Chris,
Yeah,
right?
taken
Painting.
one painting.
Yeah. Sounds good. We can work on that. Other questions? All right. So, what time is it? It's 1:30. Oh my gosh, we're on time. So I'm going to say until 3:30, you have open work time. And again, you should be outside sketching. You should be reviewing these books here and getting ideas. And you should be able to say like, I'm interested in this. I have an idea of playing off this, but varying it. And you can look at lecture 2 for any of those artists and dig deeper with them. At the end of that work time, you need to be ready to show sketches and to have a proposal for your final drawing. So like, this is my plan for my final drawing, and you're gonna run it by me, and you're gonna run it by a classmate. So you have a deliverable, right? 2 hours, and you need to have a proposal for what you wanna do for your final landscape drawing. That doesn't mean you can't keep experimenting after that, but I wanna move you on into the decision-making phase of your final. You good? Okay, so go forth into the wild. I think it's best if I stay here and you all find me here if you have questions, because if I go outside, I'm just going to wander around chasing my own tail. So I'm here, you're outside, and use any of the resources you need. Ask me questions if you have any. We'll be back here at 3:30. When you need breaks, that's totally fine in there, but you have to be back here at 3:30. And listen up, I'm going to do attendance before I introduce you all, and I'll do it again at the end of class today. Mia, Ruby, Diego, Katie, Alyssa, Mariah, Neo.
Yes.
Alice is away, Kaya is here, Annalise. Is here, Bailey, here. And those books too, don't be deterred if you don't find a landscape right away. I swear they're in there. There's just a range of stuff. And you can also, if you need another computer, you can, Seth Dodson's teaching, but you can hop into the 2D room and get on those computers if you want to. Angel, I saw, Jessica, Kitty, Arabella, oh no, you're here. I'm here. Did you leave on me? No, you didn't. Yes, yeah. That's, I can't remember what you emailed, but they talked to me. You can work it out. Francesca is here. Oh, Arabella, I got it. Okay. It happens once it's okay, not more than that. Okay. Oh, that's great. At the Palm Springs Museum, they do amazing shows in that place. It's so cute. We were like a little late for lunch, so I just went. Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, it's so such a natural. It's, I love the range of ways it works.
Yeah, they also have like this basic studio.
Yeah.
Right? We have like
we just did, there's an Agnes Pilton book up there that's from the Palm Springs Museum too, that kind of resurrected her career.
This is a cool, I've been a Palm Springs couple times, but I've never been to the museum.
It's great. Amazing career. I'm wandering around to answer questions. Do you have any clear enough? Yes. I need probably a group of shit before be ready by then, class.
Oh, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do,
I have no idea. Oh, Wakey Bedford. Yeah. I don't know what the first is not so far. Gallery.
It's also just like I'm not, I'm very prone to ignoring color, so I'm gonna challenge myself, and add myself to color. Because I'm very dead. It's the most terrifying.
It's amazing.
So I definitely
I just
And also, it's always perfect to like try it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
I think so much
so
sense to love it. Our pattern is
So,
not wild. So that's a good way to make characters.
PJ.
I don't have decided what theme today. So I have
Look at his work for like little figures and tucked in landscapes. He got some ideas, he brew in the beginning.
You saw the giant bug drawing I did? Forever.
Yeah.
And I have this really
So
nice
I'm
little
used to that. So pattern,
It's
you
really
know,
like a multi-panel.
you can tell me this is like a, floral
And he
motif,
doesn't want to set anything on
like some kind of botanical motif, maybe I'm gonna play with it. Simplified motif. Some, I want you to start with some observational element that you find in nature.
doing like a layer thing where it like layers out like a contractor way. It's not like so many panels. I think that's really cool. Like the pastel is really heavy lines and
You
really
can use these
detailed.
books and you can use any of the artists and just show us
It was the name and the specific part and everything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that sounds useful. I just want you to like help me visualize where your head is, so I can understand. Do you like these patterns?
Decided like what medium I want to use, what I want to do, but I was thinking I might do like a multi-panel, but those quart-sized watercolor like pencil things and like a number of them.
Okay, that sounds
Either
great.
that or like a larger wax pastel.
Beautiful. Yeah, I did talk about media, or I did talk about, you can
Because
put
it said you can
multiple
put
summons.
more on that.
Yeah,
Color pencil. And it's fine to get smaller. I
Yeah.
definitely don't learn to scale color pencil.
no, I think that's a really bad idea, but you might think about using the white paper in an interesting way.
I was also thinking
Cool.
or see based on like the subject matter I want to do.
I could see using like the stamp as a way to like deal with the light too, so these are crazy. These are huge.
The last, I had the last color pencil. Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
And I just gave up on that.
if you can go bigger, that's great. That was my minimum, but like, you know, like just these huge sheets of paper with really intricate elements on it, but like it all feels, it's not just top about it. So you can use negative space for sure. Okay, any questions? Yeah, and try to like pull in some observational element, even if it just helps you zoom in on like a shape that you want to incorporate, you know,